to the first panel discussion. For that, we have here Mr. Frederick Walton, who is the president and founder of the International Fraud Training Group and the North American Training Group. Mr. Naseem Khan, who is the vice president of Internal Control and Loss Minimization of ICICI Lombard. Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Dwivedi of Bajaj Alliance, where he is senior vice president in fraud investigation and loss mitigation. We have Mr. Pradeep Sen, senior vice president from SBI Life. We have Mr. Ajay Kumar Khan, the founder of Fact-Based Consultancy, who was previously of Birla Sun Life. So this would be the first group on which will be interacting on the topic operational disruptions due to the pandemic situation. We are trying to keep both the panel discussions as close to the theme of today's survey report, as close as possible. And may I request all of you to be discussing a few points on this. Let us start with Mr. Fred Walton. Mr. Walton, I think you can give us an international perspective of how how the entire insurance industry has witnessed these disruptions during this pandemic period.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here and be part of this prestige group of professionals. The insurance industry is something that I've been involved with in 30 years, and my entire career has been on the fraud and investigation side of this industry. To this day, it's to me is a passion of mine to be speaking and speaking of what insurance fraud is to anyone who wants to listen globally. The pandemic obviously has affected everybody globally. There's not one country, one company that hasn't been affected by this outside of the insurance industry, inside the insurance industry. When the pandemic first came upon us, nobody knew what to do. This industry, and again, all industries, were stuck in a bind. Everything stopped. Operations stopped. Everybody had to reestablish new policies, new procedures. How do we work from home? Security issues, cybersecurity issues from working from home. That was the #1 key for the IT staff to get their employees online and get them back working. During this time, the fraudsters took advantage of us. And when I say us, the industry of insurance, these professional fraudsters globally were able to step in and see that we were in a standstill. We were not operating as we should be. They knew they could take advantage of the fraud issues. And we saw that. We saw the numbers begin to skyrocket, begin to rise at heavily rates. We could not send investigators out as we typically did. It was completely a relearning process for us here in the United States and again globally. I think there was no difference from us to India, to Australia, and around the globe. Everybody was stopped, and we had to come up with these procedures quickly. It changed the whole perspective of how we are investigating fraud at this point. And to say at this point that we're a year and a half almost behind the initial step of the pandemic, it's been a good thing for many companies reestablishing their policies and procedures, realizing that there's better means to investigate. But we can't stop investigating. We can't determine 100% on artificial intelligence, computer analytics. Investigators need to be involved at all times. Somebody has to be out there looking at what these data analytics have put together. So human intervention, investigative interaction cannot be, reduced. It has to be maintained at a high level as we move forward. And again, the pandemic has created new procedures for us, new means of investigations, and we have to continue to train these individuals on how to utilize that. So that's kind of just as a global perspective as to what I've seen, Dr. George. Mr.
Sanjeev Kumar Dwivedi just to talk meanwhile. He's the next panelist. Mr. Dwivedi is heading the fraud investigation functions in Bajaj Alliance. Mr. Dwivedi, kindly let us have perspectives on the Indian fraud scenario during the pandemic period.
So good afternoon, everybody. In fact, it's good evening. So yes, it's good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity as a panelist over here. When it comes to pandemic, obviously, insurance industry, along with others, have also been hit hard. And because of the complex nature of its work, where the core functions there has to be an operational system which integrates between the core function, marketing, underwriting, claims, with the intermediaries, with the service providers. It makes it even more challenging. And during this COVID scenario, where there was a drastic shift into the customer's need, habits and expectations, which has compelled the insurance companies to overnight move into the virtual mode. And this, in fact, where the companies who have prepared themselves properly for the digitalization process, they could have overcome it quite smoothly compared to those who were not aligned to this. Even the customer interactions, if you see this insurance industry, traditionally we are habituated on face-to-face communication. But when it comes to pandemic situation, we had to get into the digital mode of communicating with the customers, which was again further making it more complex for us to do the business. Insurance companies had to get into a lot of innovative processes like use of artificial intelligence, machine learning tools, where companies have come up with tools where vehicle damage assessment could have been done directly through the systems or through the apps which they are sending to the customers. There are customer verifications which are done through the video connect. Plus, there are a lot of analytical tools which are being used to identify the suspected areas. Obviously, apart from all this, we have also seen there has been a lot of dropouts of employees. Almost 20 to 30% employees dropped down either because of their medical issues or their family medical issues, which has created again further pressure to the insurance sector in terms of managing their productivity and output. There has been mounting frauds where people, if you see the three corners of the triangle, fraud triangle, where we can see that because of the relaxation in the documentation and because of the restrictions in the physical verification, customers have taken opportunity of doing fraud. People have also considered it as there has been a lot of pressure on on the families where they have lost their jobs, where they have started thinking into getting different ways of earning money and surviving. So obviously the second corner, which is pressure, which has mounted up over here. Obviously there has been rationalization for doing fraud, where people have considered that if someone else is doing fraud and if he is earning money by inflating the bills, why can't I do? And they have also been into the similar line, doing similar kind of frauds. So this is what we have seen when it comes to insurance fraud over here, and we'll further speak on how we have been mitigating it in the next questions. Thank you. Yes, Mr. George.
Thank you, Mr. Dwivedi. I think we will move on to the life insurance people. Mr. Pradeepto Sen, Senior Vice President of SBI Life. Mr. Sen. Mr. Ajay Kumar Kant.
Mr.
Okay. I'd like to talk about the operational disruptions which you have seen during the pandemic situations.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So, good evening, everyone, and thanks to Triple I and all the panelists for enlightening us with so much of their experiences and sharing their thoughts also. And on the disruptions in the COVID pandemic in the life insurance industry, what Mr. Singhal has spoken about really actually is the thought which everyone is grappling with. How to actually balance it out between the greater customer experience and the awareness or taking those kind of strict measures to counter the frauds. Now the industry, and so true for life insurance also, the industry had been grappling with the frauds for so many years, especially in the recent history. And as you see the pattern of frauds also, which is quite changing. Earlier, if you see, the frauds would have been very maybe person specific or maybe client specific. But now you see that more of the claims, which is the fraudulent, you find that actually the claimant or actually the life insured would not be there, and rest of them would be there. In fact, it's a kind of a irony also that in today's frauds, the life assured for which the policy has been taken, apart from him, all of them are present in these frauds. So what we call them as nexus. And especially now when we talk about the COVID time, so those the industry was grappling with the frauds and especially the claims before that also. However, when we got stuck with the COVID pandemic, we got so many of those disruptions. And to start with, if you would recall, it started in the month of March, and March being the business month also for entire industry, apart from the other companies also. And so we were also struck with the loss of business being the crucial month of March. But at the same time, you could also see the sense of claims being reported. As you know, the fraudsters also tried to put more of the claims in the month of March as compared to other months. And we were also struck with the lack of investigations for the month of March, as well as next 5 to 6 months. So there was clear disruptions which were coming, and it was getting very, very difficult for investigations to take a call on the claim. Yeah, there were some benefits given, or the timeline which were extended by the regulators. However, there was still those kind of pressures which were coming. And during the COVID times, we also needed to fulfill the requirements of the life assured, because as you know, the claim is the moment of truth, and we need to adhere to that, and we need to pay to them. However, there were these kind of investigations which were not happening because there were lockdowns. People were unable to travel. The hospitals or the municipal, wherever the investigations generally lead to in these kind of frauds, all of them were stuck with those cases of COVID. So there was no kind of getaway to get those kind of evidences. And more so, the people were also not allowed to meet the customers, the claimants, because they were also the genuine customers or the claimant would be feeling the threat of COVID. So they were also maintaining those distances, and they were not eager to meet the investigators. As for the fraudsters, they were happy in this kind of situations not to, and they were taking those kind of advantages in the garb of pandemic. So these kind of disruptions happened, Mr. George, and uh, it may continue in the near future. However, the things are getting better as compared to the earlier days. So these were the disruptions which I can think of.
Mr. Kant, you were flagging a lot of important issues. Now, let me ask you, one pointed question. What do you think has changed when it comes to fraudulent practices? What is the major change which you have seen, Mr. Percy, with this?
So first change which which I spoke earlier also was, earlier there was the fraud which used to come from the claimant or the one person or two person. Now, apart from the claimant, you may find all the people involved in that. Second, you see that there are more of a digital kind of businesses which are there, which is having both pros and cons. The if you ask me about the negative side to it, they may because there is lack of physical meetings and all, so they try to create those kind of situations and circumstances to get those policies easily logged into. However, the cross side is it also leads a trail. So if the investigators are a bit smarter, or the companies, or the people who are taking care of this risk containment units or fraud mitigation cell, so if they are a bit more smarter, they can also get some kind of a trail through these digital footprints, which can help. So these are the few of the, and the other aspects are remaining. The hospitals are not there. Their online records are not available, even if physical records are not available. So these kind of things will always remain. However, the digital, the cyber kind of frauds will kind of take a little more prominence.
Okay. Uh, Let me ask Mr. Vedi, sir, from your experience, what have you seen as the major changes in the fraudulent practices during this pandemic?
Okay, so if you see in this pandemic, as I told you, people were not ready to meet, as Ajay has told. They were not ready to meet with the investigators, and they avoided even interacting with any company people for their claims, rather than only digital communication they were more looking forward for. So we could see that they have misutilized this opportunity to not to communicate or not to share the answers which are normally required at the time of investigation. So that has been one misleading areas which people have took it as an advantage to mislead. We have also seen like agents or IMDs of the companies who have taken the benefit of the relaxations which were given in the way of like vehicle pre-inspection was not done. So many times the already accident vehicle has been policy has been taken for those vehicles. So those kind of fraud we have seen. We have seen fake RT-PCR bills or test which was being shared for the COVID cases. We have also identified that people have masked the disease in the name of COVID. So even if there was some other disease, they have considered it as COVID disease, and then they have taken claim from the insurance companies. There has been quite a few identity theft, which we have identified, like where doctors' names and signatures were misused. Even teleconsultation, which a new trend which has come up recently, where we have found that people have grossly misused the home quarantine cases where teleconsultation was done by XYZ doctor who might be their family members, and just for the sake of claim they have misused it. We have also seen hotel industries who have tied up with the hospitals for extended COVID center without having any facilities and treating customers. So these were the major changes which we could identify during this pandemic.
Now move on to Mr. Naseem Khan, who would be focusing more on an Indian scenario of the investigations and fraud, the changes, the disruptions which happened during the pandemic scenario.
Yes.
Mr. Naseem Khan, are you back? Mr. Naseem Khan?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just completely beyond my control.
Yeah, see, there are, we were discussing a couple of things. First thing we discussed about what are the main disruptions we saw in the Indian and the world markets. And so we were listening to the panelists, your fellow panelists on that. And also we were focusing on the changes in the fraudulent practices. Would you like to give us a heads up on the changes in the fraudulent practices which you have seen?
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Thomas. I think, Sanjeev spoke. I was fortunate to hear the later part of what Sanjeev was talking about. I'll lay my emphasis on one thing. Everybody knows the usual suspect in terms of what's happening in the health claims. So one is the fraudulent part of it, which is slightly to different. The other is utilization or misuse or abuse is what you call. That we all know. That's surely happening through the health side. But let me try and focus on other area which is not spoken of. I think that's the whole place in the SME sectors. Your cases of fire, arson, are also on rise big time. I think clearly a reflection of the stress in the small time businesses are not doing well. Certain industries are badly affected due to multiple lockdowns and what have you. Stock spike, and I think there are people who are trying to be optimistic in such times. We clearly saw that at a huge scale. At least in my career of 16 years with insurance industry, that kind of in this space. So too in the property segment, in the kind of STFI that we issue. So there's a huge amount of fraud that happened there also. Number two, I think in the whole personal accident space, I think there's the impersonation which happened. People have died because of COVID, but certain that's something that we've seen. While they are low frequency, but they are high severity, high impact cases. So that is also something that we've seen. Obviously, we all know the challenges. The challenges are clear. Well, the expectation of everybody's organization was to deliver numbers to ensure that it's business as usual. But the challenges are multiple. I think the whole agency had a tough time going on the field. We all and digital investigation, while it's a way forward, it has limitation, because ultimately for you to investigate, the third party should come, or the insured should come, other people should be able contactable, they should cooperate. So those are the challenges that really came to the fore during this time. I mean, so those are my thoughts.
Wharton. So Wharton, we were listening to the previous experiences which we have seen in India during this pandemic situation. How far does it match with your experience in the USA and the world over? What I was saying is that we were listening to some changed fraudulent practices which were happening in India. We heard the perspectives from both live as well as from non-live. So I request you to give your views how it is matching with the world practices and those in the US.
It's, as I always say, it's happening everywhere. It's very similar to how we all are experiencing it. If I want to elaborate on your question again, I kind of lost you there, Dr. George. The connection is not the greatest, but
what has changed with the fraudulent practices? What has changed with the fraudulent practices which you are seeing around during the pandemic?
We have been a technology-driven industry in the U.S. for many years now, and it really expedited us to push the process even further, to the point of we use technology to investigate through the means of social media, investigating through social media and such. Again, using artificial intelligence, and these were processes that were put in place, but they were used at a medium, let's say a medium range. The pandemic really pushed us to get the technology driven to all of our employees and not just the investigators. Most of the investigations, of course, are always handled by the investigative team, but with the amount of claims coming in and the amount of fraud that we were seeing, we had to address that the claims and surveyors had to start identifying some of their own means to investigate, simple desktop investigations, as we would call them. Let them do a little pre-investigation via the internet. Simple social media search, Google lookups. There's so much out there that can be done from a desktop, that these individuals, we really push the rest of the industry, the underwriters even, to do simple little tasks that they could use the technology that we gave them access to. Prior to that, it was only investigation. Send your files over to the investigation department and they'll take a look at it. So we see trying to get more people involved in understanding a little bit about our jobs as investigators, to do as we call them, pre-investigations. If they feel something is suspicious or is not right, we tend to let them use their sixth sense that something is not right here. Let's take a look at it. Instead of handing it off to another person, we're trying to educate them to do a little bit more before they hand off the investigation.
That's interesting. Let me quickly move on to Mr. Pradeep Sen. He has been able to join.
I have joined in.
Yes. Good that we could have you back.
Yes.
We were discussing the topic about the disruptions which we have seen in the markets during the pandemic when it comes to insurance fraud. If you could adjust your video a bit so that we can see your face.
I have done it. Now can you?
Yes, better.
Yeah.
So we are asking we are discussing what exactly has changed regarding the fraudulent practices. Maybe you can have a quick reply to that before I come to the next. Yeah, my question is, Mr. Sen, whether you have noticed any major change in the insurance practices, in the fraud practices, in the fraudulent things which are happening around us during the pandemic.
Yeah, as you see, now that we are in the middle of the pandemic and more than 1.5 years have passed in the pandemic, what we are observing that yes, this is desperate times. People have gone into desperate measures. Frauds have gone up definitely across the industry, in the Indian insurance industry, be it life or health or non-life. What we are actually observing, see, if we really take it into account, any company in the financial sector today, if I take it, is getting a breach at least 115 to 125 times during the course of the year. And at least 1/3 is getting successful. But then, since we are more into the digital atmosphere and people have become exceedingly smart, people are leaving without keeping any digital footprint also. Now, what is happening in this is, in today's parlance, everything is hackable in the digital atmosphere. Now, the IT systems everywhere, be it in manufacturing, be it in finance, is not having the adequate manpower to handle. There are frauds happening there. People in the insurance, you are not able to meet customers because everything in insurance is based on meeting face to face. But since that is not happening regularly, what is happening is anything and everything it is possible to just push it through in the digital era, and it's coming through. Now, COVID-19, if I take it in particular, you are getting not only reading, but it is happening in real life. You are getting a COVID-19 certificate to enhance a lot of things. You get financially, you need something, you get a COVID-19 certificate. In insurance, you are producing a COVID-19 certificate in order to get a claim. Now, these sort of frauds, these sort of disadvantages in today's pandemic scenario, we are seeing across the industry, irrespective of whether it is life or non-life or health. And it has increased over the years. Just hope we are seeing the last of the pandemic, hopefully in the current year. Hopefully we'll have changes in the next year, and we should be coming back to a scenario where it is a new normal, but then the normal should give us some hope, not what we are facing in the current year.
To ask you another question. So you think that during this COVID period, we have had different kind of technologies just coming into, which is resulting into fraudulent practices.
Yeah.
Because this the way we have been trying to find a new medicine for the pandemic, for this new spate of diseases. I mean, it's huge for the new spate of frauds. Is the investigation and the fraud fighting industry, have you found out some new solutions, or are you still
as far as investigations go, many places you are unable to visit because of either a lockdown or a quick shut off by the government or the local authorities, and you can't visit. So we are more and more, we are basing ourselves in the digital front, going into the what should I say, checking everything online. Wherever it's possible, we are checking everything online. However, where it's not possible to check it online, we are trying to call up people, trying to verify it over the phone, and then taking it forward. Also, we've also done something. We've sent across messages, we sent across emails because people are working from home, getting details over the email and then going ahead with the investigation, taking actions wherever it is required. But to be very frank, many places in India, I mean, it is still not possible to do everything online in the current scenario because not everything is digitally available. So that sort of handicap we are always carrying in the industry today.
Let me come across to Mr. Let me just check out this Mr. Ajay Kumar Kant also. How does he? What major initiatives have we done from the fraud fighting side? So thank you, sir, for that answer. So let me check out from another person from the life industry on this.
No, he's right. I hope I am audible.
Yeah.
So I fully agree what Pradipto actually stated, and whatever the digital records and all in the normal circumstances also there were those challenges which were already there, be it hospital, be it death certificates, be it any other kind of records from the authorities. Now in the COVID times it has increased a lot. However, so these kind of challenges will be there. However, there are what I also see it as an opportunity. So as we say there, in each adversity there is some opportunity. So the opportunity would be because right now the industry is facing lots of claims, be it life, non-life. So there would be the huge demand for investigators, and that too the trained investigators, and where the trainings, the CPII, the APDI, Mr. Fred, and other the associates who are already started it. So that would play a major role in training these kind of investigators who can take those things head on. Secondly, the smartness, the techniques which the traditional way may not help, although the human intervention will still be important in times of digital or in times of various tools, AI, ML techniques and all, that the human intervention will still be there, because on the field what we do or the investigators do, that will never go away. The face-to-face interactions with so this time is where those kind of challenges are there, but in the coming days, with the trainings, and probably in the next few couple of years, if they are trained also, we would be weeding out those kind of investigators and the qualified, like Mr. Kuvar Singh also reiterated on the need of the investigators, the importance of them. So in the pandemic also, I may admit, and I can, I'm sure Pradipto and others also may agree, the investigators played a very crucial role and in saving lots of money for us, for the industry in this pandemic. And there had been people, so we also, the companies also have to partner them, more collaborative, more participative with them, more empathy should be shown to them. There may be some hike in remuneration and all, depending on the quality and the trainings and the efforts shown by them. It may, so those kind of things will lead to, and I'm sure in coming days it will be kind of a positive things which everyone we are looking forward to.
Mr. Dwivedi, would you like to add something on the new ways that you have found out in fighting fraud in this new situation, new mechanisms?
So as mentioned by Ajay, I agree. In fact, we have also got into the initial desktop investigation. These were the tools because we were unable to reach to the customer's place, and because of such restrictions, we have come up with tools like Video Connect, which was being done. and through the video connect, we could directly connect with the customer. A message was sent to them, and they used to on the message. After owning the message, we could see them. We could also collect the documents from them directly, and which could be verified. Use of analytics have gone up substantially during this period because we could not waste time on false triggers. So this has been of great help to us in this scenario. There has been quite a few data integration which we did with government agencies. Recently, we have started receiving. So I will just give you an example where there were cases which were identified where vehicle segments or class of vehicles were different from actual the policy which was taken. So for a four-wheeler policy, in fact, instead of four-wheeler, a two-wheeler policy was taken. So this kind of fraud we could identify where after interacting with government departments, with GIC, now the GIC has started sharing with all insurance companies the class of vehicles. With this class of vehicles, now we can easily identify whether a customer is whether he's applying for a two-wheeler policy or a four-wheeler policy. So if his vehicle number automatically highlights that this is a four-wheeler policy, so you cannot give him a two-wheeler policy. So this kind of tools were implemented for investigation. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just come across to Mr. Nasim Khan to give the final round of discussions on this topic. That is mentioning what are the new fraud fighting mechanisms, investigation mechanisms that they are employing, and with that, I think we will close this particular session. Move on to the next part of the session. I was trying to get across to Mr. Nasim Khan. Mr. Khan, I think you are not connected now. Okay. Let me come back to Mr. Fred Wharton. Mr. Wharton, would you like to list out or to just summarize the major changes in the methods of investigation that you have seen in the Indian as well as the global industry?
Yeah, as Sanjeev had just mentioned, the face-to-face, at first, we were so used to going out and meeting with the claimants and the insureds face-to-face, and we began these Zoom meetings as we're doing today. This became, why hadn't we used this 5 years ago? The technology was there that we could do face-to-face interactions with individuals. So why weren't we using this? So COVID really opened our eyes up to tools that were available to us, tools that we were using interactively between our company employees once we all became remote. That this tool today is a great tool that we use, because typically you could only understand a person on the telephone. You did not know if you were talking to the insured. There was no identification presented to the screen to match me to the person you're speaking to. We couldn't do that through a telephone call. Now through Zoom and meetings and all these other tools for face-to-face interviews, as Sanjeev said, you can see documents, you can verify verifications. If I put my ID up to the screen, this was a tool that really has been taken advantage of that we hadn't used in the past that was there. So that's a big change that we saw. And not only can you confirm someone's identity, but you can, potentially see any potential injuries. You could show a cast if somebody was injured in a way. You could tell body language. As an investigator, we learned that body language shows a lot about deception. Is somebody lying to us? Is somebody wiping the sweat off their brow? Are they twiddling their fingers? Are they jumping around in their chair? There's so many tools that investigators can learn about a body language that is a tool. And now that we can present ourselves on film or in front of each other, and we can record these messages or these seminars, we can go back and listen to the insured's answers, where in the past maybe we did not. We asked a question, we did not answer. We didn't hear the answer fully. Most of the time when people are interviewing somebody, they tend to read the questions that they've written out. What day did this happen? And then you're waiting for the insured to answer, and then you ask the next question. listening skills are not very well. So now with these recordings on Zoom, we can go back and listen to our answers and maybe catch something that we missed. So this is a tool that we've really taken advantage of and changed our way of doing investigations and really seeing our customer or our claimants as to what their physicality may be. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Wharton, for summarizing as well as adding the few points which you put in which are the new things happening in the fraud investigation scenario. And with that, let me formally close and thank the panelists of this session on operational disruptions and the new solutions which we have seen in the pandemic situation. Let me thank Mr. Naseem Khan, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar Dwivedi, Mr. Pradeep Sen, Mr. Ajay Kumar Kant, and Mr. Frederick Wharton